Welcome everybody to the Ohio Business Podcast. I'm Stephen Pohl. I'm joined with Gino Bambino, producer of Avant Music Group. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
This is a beautiful studio setup. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. I love coming in here. It's very open and very nice. So what building are we in exactly?
So this building was called it's the Milo Arts Complex. It was built in 1894. And so basically the owner, Rick Mann, and don't quote me on this because I'm not entirely sure when he acquired the building. I want to say it was sometime in the 80s.
Okay.
I could be wrong on that. But basically his philosophy was he wanted to, have an artist community. So the majority of the artists and folks that have, residencies here are visual artists. I kind of came into the equation as one of the first, recording, music studios, that existed here. There was actually one prior, one of the clients that I'm working for, they're called Hella Luna.
Mm-hmm.
They acquired what was a recording studio on the property that was kind of already built, to do that. But it's their main tracking space and rehearsal space.
Okay.
So, but to make a long story short, I came here from California. I was an engineer and producer, worked for a number of recording studios out in Los Angeles. Ended up coming back here unexpectedly at the time, kind of planting my roots here. I was part of another studio. Me and my current business partner, Shane Judan, who's not here today, but Shane's the man. Thank Shane for his kindness and support. But we put together this space about a year ago. And so traditionally recording studios, the way I see it is that they almost act like barber shops in a way. And that's not, not throwing shade or any offense to that model. We tried that for a while, but I'm more or less a producer. So the goal here was to just, a big issue that artists have, right, is they go to a recording studio, very much like they go get a haircut. They might do a walk-in, or they might call ahead. I'm gonna make an appointment.
Yeah.
You get that haircut, and that's great. Now, sometimes they do a great job, and there's a relationship that's built between the client and the stylist,
Mm-hmm.
right? But a lot of times that doesn't happen. So they come in, they maybe they do an edge up, but they don't understand. I really want this to be done with my hair, right?
Yeah.
And so you're not going to nail that the first time.
No.
It's going to take time to build that relationship and go, oh, okay, well, this is really what he needs. And, I know so-and-so likes a 2 on the clippers, and, I'm going to write that down and that kind of thing. A lot of recording studios kind of operate the same way. You hope that whatever artist or client you're working with is going to create that relationship with, you, the engineer, producer, whatever your role is. But it doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
And it's hard to really get a grasp on that individual, until you've created some type of rapport and understanding of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So I, throughout the years, have, built clientele and people that I work with regularly. We did, for a period of time, operated that way. We've had people call in, hey, I want to book 2 hours in the studio, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of studios that operate that way. We, as of recently, do not operate that way anymore. Everything that I do, at least personally, is project-oriented. So if you are a new artist, our company is more or less on the artist development side. So we'll sit down, we'll try to assess, hey, where are you at in your career now? If you're brand new, this is how the business works. We're going to understand what direction you want to take, and then we help develop that framework to get them from point A to point B. And, that could be, okay, well, what do you resonate with? Well, I want to be a pop singer.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What artists are you listening to? Oh, I like Katy Perry. Okay. So now that gives us an idea, like, okay, you want to do something like this.
Mm-hmm.
But, but, you know, we also want to make sure that they are staying true to who they are as an individual. So record labels and, you know, just people in the music industry, when you get to a point in your career where it's time to make it a business, just like any business, there are different facets of what needs, you know, to work in tandem to make that business function, right? The marketing department, graphic designer, you know, an accountant, a day-to-day manager, you know, a touring manager if they're on the road. So all of these things need to happen. Social media manager, all that stuff,
Yep.
right? So most of the time artists are doing all of this on their own. And it's damn near impossible to break through that next step without having a team. So whether it's members of a band that, you know, maybe the bass player, his job is, you know, to manage the social media. Maybe the singer is better with the numbers and that kind of thing. So a lot of what we do is education on how the business works, but also we're developing everything around that artist. So, for instance, I work with a lot of like singer-songwriters now. We just finished this track with the talented singer-songwriter Sydney.
Very good single.
Yeah,
I actually
listened to it.
would love to throw that in rotation when that comes out, honestly.
Dope.
That was nice.
Yeah. And she came to me, you know, with just a piano progression.
Okay.
And, you know, she's got a great voice. So a lot of what I do is I go, okay, how do I take this raw DNA of this song, because the chords are there, the melodies are there, the lyrics are there, and how do I turn that into a commercial piece of music?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean commercial in a negative connotation.
Well, digestible
Right,
for listeners, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is also a big difference. You know, we're trying to keep the integrity of the art, but you have to be realistic in knowing, well, hey, if I want it to go out here, it needs to be able to land in a way where the presentation allows it to do so. One thing I say a lot is absolutely true. People are conditioned to high quality content.
Yeah.
Like they digest it with not even thinking about it. You know, within a blink of an eye or a quick listen on the radio, you're hearing millions of dollars behind marketing. You're hearing, you know, several hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the project in production. You know, you're hearing the best guys on the engineering front, all of this stuff. And people hear that all day long. So if you're not working with somebody that has, you know, an actual understanding of how this stuff works, has the, not even just, you know, the equipment, all this stuff, that's part of it. These are tools, but understanding how to use it, having a trained ear to know, like, this is how we, you know, turn this from point A to point B.
And leverage that into success. Yeah.
Right. But if your presentation falls short, the thing is people aren't going to understand why. They're just used to things sounding really good and looking really good.
Yeah.
And so when the top companies with the biggest budgets are behind, you know, these artists or a Netflix series or whatever it is, if the quality isn't there, it misses somebody. Now, a great song is a great song. And so as a producer, I can recognize that. I can know when the recording's not there yet. That's okay. That's why they're coming to me, because they know that I have the know-how to get it and present it in a way that they, you know, visualize. And so that's why we focus on projects, you know, and not hourly recording. We know that if you're an artist and you're new here and you want to get out there and do it properly, you need to be educated on how this business works. You also need to have somebody to invest more than just an hourly recording slot into you. And so we turn down probably 90% of inquiries because it's not a good fit for us.
Has that benefited, you think, in the long run, doing that?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, just on if we're going to talk business-wise, so like on the marketing front, you know, if you present, and this is the same thing with the artists, like everything that we do, we're like, hey, this is high class. This is top of the line. We charge this rate because, you know, we give a quality product. And you're not just getting a recording, you're getting a relationship, you're getting access to contacts.
You get a finished project.
Right.
Yeah.
But we don't just, the biggest issue that artists have is they enter a studio and they leave with the song. Well, now what? You know, how do I get it out there? They might be asking their buddies or they're browsing the internet. There's all this misinformation, or just, you know, they don't know how to navigate through all that information. We make it as simple as possible, and we also provide resources for, hey, now that your song is finished, this is what you should do. Now, granted, you know, our company does offer management, but we try to give a blueprint to every artist that we work with, so that way they know, okay, well, I at least have some direction now, versus I went to Joe Schmo Recording and they recorded me and it was all on them.
Yeah.
And again, not to discredit any, you know, any studio or any individual that's working out here. And I know there's certainly other guys that look at it more on a project base, but I truly don't believe that that artist is going to get the opportunities that they could if they did have direction, versus, hey man, I got my hair cut at Great Clips and it turned out okay. You know?
Yeah.
But now so and so goes out there for the date and maybe it didn't land right.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, I go to Carol at, you know, Great, or wherever it might be.
Yeah, her salon or whatever.
The
Yeah.
Cut in Columbus.
Yeah.
Shout out Zach Beebe. You should actually have Zach in your podcast.
I love him.
He's a very great business mind here in this city. But, you know, they operate their salon, you know, in a somewhat similar way. It's like, you know, we're here to create relationships.
Yeah.
You know, you want your hairstylist to know your hair, your
Yeah.
personality. Hey man, let's try this today, you know? Whatever. There's a new look that's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's about that relationship. So that's really what we try to do. From just a technical standpoint, you know, our rates here, I do a flat rate per day.
Okay.
Anytime I talk to somebody about a project, I just try to understand what those project goals are, and I'm realistic. You know, I know what we're worth. I know the kind of time and energy we put, and I'll say this too. There's a lot of times that there are hours of time that's not accounted for, that we're not charging.
Yeah.
But the thing is we care about the art and the career of the artist, and so, you know, sometimes if it's going to take me an extra 2 hours to get the mix to where it should be, I don't mind doing that, you know, because I know that we're going to elevate something. And I want to be proud of everything that I work on, you know.
Yeah.
So I try to meet the artist or the band halfway, you know, be that silent member of the project who can offer, you know, a multitude of things to just get their vision elevated. And that's it.
Yeah.
You know, so, yeah, so far it's been really great. And again, I know you're asking, like, just turning down the business, has that helped? I think in a lot of ways it has, because, excuse my French, we're not half-assing, you know, any project. We
Not
really,
churning and burning. You're really taking your time.
we're taking our time to really make sure that every release and everything that we work on is a quality piece of art. And not just, hey, we were in here for 2 hours and you get what you get. And so, again, I mean, that might work for other people. I know certain styles of music are more inclined to that fast work pace like that. But the detail orientation of what we do is what makes this thing a unique thing. Down to the space that we're in. I mean, there were things that, you know, the equipment that we have here, this is all state of the art. So for any like recording tech nerds, we got the real deal, you know, Neve preamps, a lot of Neve actually, a handful of, you know, quality compressors. We have a series of distressors here. We got the Pultec EQs, Really state-of-the-art conversion for analog to digital. We haven't cut any corners on getting a true, authentic analog sound.
Yeah.
Now, you'll see other studios that used to work in LA, so, when I was over at NRG Recording, they would have these gigantic Neve consoles that are, close to $1 million, which is great. There's actually a studio here in Columbus called Sonic Lounge that has a really amazing, it's a Neve console. I'm not sure of the exact model. Sounds great.
Yeah.
And that's awesome, and Joe Veers, owner of that studio, very, very talented engineer, producer. But, today in 2020, when we put this setup together, I wanted to have, gear is kind of like how a painter would describe color, right?
Yeah.
So my blue palette could be this Neve 1073. But, my red palette could be these, AMEC 9098s. So I like having little pieces of gear that can, I don't need 100 channels of one color, if that makes sense. And
You don't need every shade. You just need the basics, pretty much, and then.
Yeah, I have,
And you can mix,
Exactly.
Mix on your own, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and what you're seeing now is the control room. It's set up to be a place. I try to treat this like a sanctuary for artists. They come in here, the whole building. There's artists all through this. When we got into here, it was about a 3-month process because you can't just get a space here. There's a whole review process and meeting the other residents of Milo and really just making sure that we were congruent with what they wanted this community to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually me and my partner Shane were voted in.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
It is. It's really neat.
Yeah.
So, the community aspect is really important. In addition, though, like I said, you're looking at the control room. This building has what used to be a gym because it was a school. It's immediately next door to us. And that's the space that we use for live tracking. So drums. We could fit an orchestra in there. It's 3,000 square feet. We've done concerts here.
Oh, really? Wow.
Which is probably a good segue with the whole coronavirus thing and how that's affecting businesses. I am very thankful to the universe that we've been able to stay afloat through all of this. The live industry in music is pretty much non-existent right now. A lot of my friends and peers that work, within the industry, a lot of festivals were canceled and stuff like that. So it's been tough for the live world, and it's really been tough for the music world in general. I think we got lucky because of certain regulations here in Ohio that allowed us. We are technically a media company, and that fell under the category of an essential business. So we remained open, but we're very selective again on what clients we work with, and obviously respecting their needs. You had my mother on this podcast, so her company actually comes in here and professionally sanitizes everything and makes sure that the studio is up to code and all of that. So, but yeah, we again, it is a private recording studio, a private business, so to speak, and so we've been very fortunate to stay afloat. And I think because of the closings around the U.S., in some ways, business picked up for us. So we lucked out.
Yeah. Well, it is weird talking to some businesses. Usually the ones I talk to, they're doing fine because it's not really that live front or service-based industries, really. So it's been interesting to talk to businesses. Like the owners are like, "Yeah, we're doing actually really well," but during a pandemic, they hate to say it, but it's been interesting to talk to people because my business is doing well as well. So
It's good.
it's been interesting. I want to introduce you guys to the Ohio Business Podcast first sponsor, Nextdoor. Want to earn extra cash with your extra space? There's an app for that, to Nextdoor, the marketplace for your storage space. Nextdoor is currently taking on new hosts like me. Simply visit their site, nextdoor.com, nxtstor.com, to get the app. Just think what an extra $200 a month can mean to you by simply storing your friends' boxes and mattresses. Once again, check out nextdoor.com. Thanks. So how did you get into engineering music in the first place?
I was classically trained as a child. I got into music around age 7.
Okay.
Started with classical music. My progression into this thing was kind of very linear. So I did start with classical music. I got into more contemporary music. I actually, film music was very influential to me, which led me to hearing like other instruments and sounds.
What do you know by film music? Just like
film scores and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. I was really big into. So like the Matrix films came out when I was a kid, and I was hearing a lot of electronic music, and that was my first time getting exposed to like electronic music, and like trance and stuff like that. So I started diving deeper into just different styles of music, and I'm obsessed with music. But the way I see music is, it's all the same thing, right? There's you got an octave of any scale, and it just repeats to infinity. So you have these notes that can be reconfigured into pretty much anything, but there's only X amount of possibilities, right? So a guitar can play a C chord, so can a piano. The difference is, and I think this kind of comes into play with how I treat producing, they're just different tones to me. The tone of a piano sounds different than a guitar, but they can play the same notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same with vocals. Vocals can sing a melody line, a guitar can play a melody line. The same exact notes, but it's a different sound because you're going from a voice to a guitar or whatever it is. So, went through high school, got into, like heavier rock music. I fell in love with the band System of a Down. I thought they had a really, they were heavy, but they had this Middle Eastern thing that was in the music, and that kind of pulled my roots into film music that used more exotic sounds and stuff, and so I was hooked. I got in a band in high school. We were called Novalo, and it was like a progressive rock metal band that we were in. We played with those guys for 10 years. And so engineering kind of came as a byproduct of, number one, being broke and, not being able to afford going to recording studios.
Yeah.
So I would just buy whatever
Build your own
cheap stuff,
yeah.
and I would acquire things as I got older.
Yeah.
And so I was really bad at it for a while, and then the more you fail, the more you learn.
Get better, progression.
Yep. And then so I ended up, being decent enough at it, and people would ask, "Hey, where'd you record? We like the sound of your stuff." I was like, "I did it at home, with maybe $500 worth of equipment." And so that's how I got my start into recording other people and being involved in music projects. All self-taught up until the point that I did a job for this artist in California, a mix, and he ended up having it mastered at Universal Mastering Studios. And I ended up meeting the mastering engineers at that studio, and they praised the work, which to my, shock, I was like, wow, okay, maybe this is something I should look into.
Yeah.
All ironically, doing this through college, I was a student at the Columbus College of Art and Design, so I was a visual artist, and graphic designer and marketer, because I went to school for marketing there, all while I started doing all this. So it was kind of an interesting, I was studying one thing, but my passion was really this. And I was making, for a kid in college, decent money.
Mm-hmm.
I could buy beer or whatever I needed to.
That's all that matters.
That
time period.
Right? So, but yeah, I just turned into that, and then after getting that track mastered out there, my great friend Warren Sokol, mastering engineer out in LA, told me he went to this school called the Recording Workshop, just here in Chillicothe, and so I ended up going, studying there, and getting more of a formal background. And from that point forward, I started freelancing at different studios. There's a studio called Orange Studio, which is on the other side of this street, Fifth Avenue. Shout out Joey and Brandon over at Orange Studio. So I was freelancing out of there. Eventually, I felt like I wanted to, hit that next step in my career. And so I got hired at a studio called Larrabee Studios in Los Angeles. From that point on, I moved to LA and bounced back and forth to a couple different studios, which you would be surprised the pay of of an engineer out there is not, it's not a whole lot. So
I can imagine, yeah. I feel like that's how it goes.
So I find it ironic, and for anybody that's watching, you guys that are freelance or engineers and producers here, you're probably making more than staff engineers out there, which is fine, you know what I mean? But I think the way to do it, I've kind of always, marched to my own beat type deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up just going freelance again, and finding my own clients. And I think any producer, engineer of fame, so to speak, whatever that means in this music audio world, I think it's silly, but most of them are, you go to them because of their work, so they're not employed by a studio; they're their own entity.
Yeah.
And that's how you really do this for a living. But it's a hustle, always. You're always having to find the next project, and I've been blessed enough that most of this has been referral based, but just like anything, there are slow months.
Of course.
And I always recommend anybody, especially if you're in the music world, to have multiple sources of income. I freelance out of, I do audio work for this church called World Harvest Church, and run like their, what we call their pit audio, and TV sound and stuff like that. So finding other ways to utilize your skills. We all love music, and I love doing it, but realistically, especially with the Corona thing,
Mm-hmm.
it's good to have different sources of income.
When you freelance or contractor, you're independent. You gotta have multiple streams because there are those slow months, and you don't know
Right.
what's coming at you.
Right.
Yeah. What would you say? What stage along an artist's career do they usually come to you? Early on.
It
midway,
varies. I've had a few major artists in here within the past couple months that have recorded and worked with. I've had locally big bands and artists that I've worked with, and I've had brand new artists that I worked with a talented young lady, Elena Arthur. She is a junior, I believe, at Hilliard Davidson, one of the Hilliard schools.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's brand new to it. Sat down with her, we worked out, her music, and her family came to me because it was like, hey, well, again, we're not a barbershop. We're here to create those relationships and really help build, a foundation for her. So I like working with the brand new artists because there's no expectations for them, and that their first experience working with an actual producer in the studio is a positive one. They end up having a lot of fun. We make sure that we take care of them, and they get out there and they're established legitimately.
Mm-hmm.
It was tough for me growing up as an artist because I had no guidance. We had to figure out everything on our own, And if I had a mentor, to help guide me, I think it could have been a different story. I would have maybe learned what I know now then, or at least quicker, but who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But I personally, I enjoy being a mentor to those that want to learn. And a lot of times when we work with young, new artists, they're fascinated by the studio and they want to learn more about it, and I'm always happy to talk about it.
Nice.
So,
Any specific reason for Columbus?
I was born here. Like I said, I moved to LA. I came back. My father was sick at the time, so it was kind of like an unexpected thing. But rather than be complacent, this is what I do. And our market here is growing. There's a handful of studios in this city. But it was always a thing where I felt like if there was ever a time to start something, it was going to be now. So we built this with a different mindset, and I think so far it's been good.
How would you kind of describe the Columbus music scene?
It's a very small community, and I say that in a positive way. It's a very tight-knit community. I think Columbus artists could really benefit from supporting one another, being more transparent about any time they're doing business or playing with another act, or anytime bands or artists are running into each other, being kind to one another, and really just, I think we need to build this community a little bit tighter, because any major city, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Tennessee, that camaraderie between other artists and that support for them, even if you don't love their music, I think is really essential.
Respect.
Respect.
Yeah, recognition.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm all about being real and upfront with people. I also believe in the philosophy that if you don't have anything positive to say about somebody, maybe you shouldn't say it. And so I think part of it is music is a younger person's game for the most part. So I think some of those values are maybe learned a little bit later. But I think the city would really benefit from just a general love and respect for people that are trying to do it. And again, if there are circumstances where maybe your experience with somebody wasn't great, maybe it's best to just move forward from that and not speak badly about that person. Again, and I always use this comparison because I think it's interesting. So like a plumber, there are many plumbing companies, I'm sure. I don't know a ton about them.
Mm-hmm.
But plumbers don't hate other plumbers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I go and I fix your clogged toilet, I'm not going to hate the next guy for doing the same thing over here. I always find it odd when it's like there are things that are said amongst other musicians or other studios or other engineers. That's silly to me. If anything, that would be more of a reason for us to talk because we do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think this community could really benefit from just showing a little love to people and trying to support one another. I know people treat the music thing as a competition. It's really not. And I think if you have this competitive nature in what you're doing, maybe you need to define your role as an artist a little bit clearer because, and I'll use, rappers for instance, like a rapper like Kendrick Lamar is not competing with a rapper like Future.
Mm-hmm.
They both make hip hop music, but they have their own lane.
Yeah.
They do what they do specifically, and that's why they have an audience and a fan base. Myself as a producer, I'm not competing with any producer here. No other producer in this city does what I do,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. You know, if you want to go to this other guy, then he does something different than
Yeah.
me.
If anything, you want, increased competition. Makes yourself, try to better yourself, and then it makes the city look good. So, you want to go to Columbus because there's great producers there.
Yeah.
And then if you're good, if you stand out, you get the business. So, yeah, competition is good. Just got all love. What does it say? Like, rising tide raises all ships or whatever. That type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are times where, I know that I'm not the best fit for a project.
Yeah.
And vice versa. I've had people, other friends that work in this industry refer people to me because they're like, hey, I think this is probably more your lane.
Mm-hmm.
And when I lived in LA, that's very much what most of these bigger, engineering producers would do. Hey man, I'm busy. I'm already got a project, call Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Dave gets the job. Right. So the one thing I really liked about living in Los Angeles was that there was a community of audio engineers and producers that would meet up weekly for lunch. Peter Dell, which, if you see this, Pete, we miss you. We would do a weekly lunch in Burbank, and it was a big industry hang, and it was just all people that do what we do, showing love to one another, and it was like a family.
Mm-hmm.
I would love for something like that here in Columbus. I think Columbus is ready for it, but they have to want to.
Yeah.
Granted, I know it's Corona, so we did have this thing called Music Business Mondays, which was hosted by Bruce Garfield, who's the music commissioner of the city now. My family's known Bruce for quite a while, so it was cool to see him take that role. But at the very least, it was a congregation of other music professionals and artists, and it was like an educational thing, and I think that's great. I would love to see more of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think other artists need to be aware of other artists and other creatives. If we're ever going to take this city to the next point, it's going to take that team mindset.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Feed off the energy, grow it together. Yeah.
exactly.
As we kind of wrap this up,
Sure.
what are some of your biggest successes and some of your biggest failures throughout your engineering career?
Well, I'll be the first to admit I've been, when I moved to LA, I didn't understand the studio etiquette. So knowing when to speak, when not to speak, knowing what's acceptable as far as what is deemed professional versus what's not professional behavior, that may seem obvious. In those kind of high caliber studios, it's not. So, I have been yelled at multiple times for how I looked at someone or how I walked
Damn.
or saying something or talking to an artist when apparently it wasn't the time to speak to them. And you learn very quickly. You kind of have this out of sight, out of mind kind of persona when you're in the studio. You're there to work, and, there might be other people laughing and having a good time, but
Not for you.
it's not for you.
Yeah.
They can laugh and do that.
Yeah.
That's they're paying to be in there. So stuff like that I learned. The one position I had, ended up losing that position over poor communication. Again, I've realized, if I've realized anything in this industry, is just to keep your mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
If you say anything about anybody, even if it's not meant to be malicious, it can still backfire.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people forget that. Greatest successes, I'm pretty damn proud of this studio. This is something that, a business venture that my partner and I took. We eliminated all other partners from our prior, business dealings. And we had a vision for what we wanted to do, and we did it. And we did it through a pandemic. And we flourished through a pandemic, which not everyone can say that. And I feel incredibly fortunate that we can. I feel like anytime, like today, I felt amazing today. I knocked out 3 mixes, 3 artists I'm producing. Every single one of them were happy with it, and I listened to it, and I'm like, man, this rocks.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds great. And so anytime I can take one of these songs in my car and listen to it and feel like, you know, I met the band or the artist halfway, that's a win for me.
Yeah.
And it's a win for them. So I think when I was younger in my career, I would rate my success by, oh, I worked with this big artist. And I have. I've worked with bigger artists. You know, there's a huge problem of crediting, which there's a lot of stuff that I've been involved with that has not been credited, but that's just a major problem in this industry. But that being said, you know, I do enjoy working with the local artist or the brand new artist. I find that more rewarding than the big artist that has expectations and you're just, you know, the housekeeper of the studio at that point. So it's, I think any time that you can make music, it's a win.
That's awesome. Anybody that you would say to be on the lookout for right now?
As far as
artist wise, yeah.
Well, there's a band that I worked with, formerly known as Black Coffee. They're now a band called South of Eden. They signed to Republic Records under Lava Records, which is a subsidiary. They're taking off in their career right now. If you follow them on Instagram or Facebook or any of that stuff, you know, their label and their hard work is really showing. Just worked with Hello Luna, really great band. Kenzie Coyne is the lead singer. They've been here in Columbus for, I want to say, at least 4 years. Just wrapped up a single with them. Super hardworking, super talented people. That was the rock song I played for you.
Yeah, the second one?
Yes.
That was nice.
God, there's so many.
I have to check them out.
In the hip hop world, Kid Columbus produced a single with him and a Sony artist named Doughboy. It'll be out sometime in October. That's exciting. That's already getting spins here, all at all the clubs because it got leaked.
Ah.
But that's okay.
How do those leaks happen?
They just happen.
What goes on? Like I you just hear that all the time.
No comment.
Interesting.
But people love the track.
Yeah, that's good.
Another great rock band, the Warren Flints. They were penned to be on this year's Sonic Temple. Unfortunately, Corona canceled that, but I've been working with them for quite a while. A lot of good artists, you know, great engineers. There's a guy named Mozart who has extensive hip hop clientele here in the city and R&B. Number of projects we've collaborated on. You know, that some of which have been, you know, major artists. Yeah, there's a lot of really great music. And if I'm missing you, Faye, we just did a single for Faye. Worked with a classic rock band called Exit Popes. They got a song called MAGA. It's coming out September 11th, which is 2 days from now. Okay. It never ends, and I love that.
That's awesome.
I will say this. I'll plug something for myself. So I have started a new rock metal project called Celeria. We are fortunate enough to have musical contributions from a gentleman named Matt McJunkins. He plays in a band called A Perfect Circle, which is one of my all-time favorite bands. Sean Snow is the vocalist, guy here in Columbus, amazing singer. Michael Levine, who's been in a number of bigger like metal projects. He was the drummer for All That Remains. So for you metalheads, I got some new stuff coming. So I'm excited. I'm finally putting out one of my records that I've been sitting on material, so it's pretty cool.
How else can people find Avant or you or get in touch with you?
I'm on all social media. I guiltily use my Instagram more than any of them because I'm lazy.
Yeah.
But there's an Avant music group on Instagram. We do posts and stuff there. Gino Bambino AMG is my Instagram handle. You can honestly just Google Avant Music Group. Our website's there. Pretty much everywhere. We are looking to do here shortly some video series where we go through like, engineering and mixing and that kind of thing. As well as at our live space, we are working on doing fully socially distant live stream concerts with a simultaneous studio experience here, where the patrons of the event can come in here and listen to the studio sound that's getting broadcasted on the internet, but also in the concert venue, they'll be able to watch the show, all within regulations and all of that, but we're really excited about that, so that should be pretty cool.
Awesome. Any last words you want to tell people, or words of advice, anything?
Be kind to people. Don't speak badly about people. Support your community. Figure out how you collaborate with other artists and creatives, business owners, and really treat this city, as a community. And spread love. Just be kind to people. And keep making music. Never give up on making music.
Beautiful message, Gino Bambino, Avant Music Group. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for letting me be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. The Ohio Business Podcast is sponsored by Jansen Media. Jansen Media is a website design and digital marketing agency. They develop custom strategies and solutions around client goals and business objectives. From day one, they have been focused on results, building websites that deliver more online traffic, more conversions, better user experience, easy navigation, and web functionality. You can find Jansen Media on their website at jansenmedia.com. That's spelled JANSCEN media.com. That's jansenmedia.com. Thanks.